Hello, and welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, this conversation that we are going to have tonight surrounding why do we get so hurt? Why do we get hurt so easily? Why do we take such great offense? Why does things just kind of permeate us at an internal level where it's just, and we say just, putting the word just in front of these things that really cause real emotional damage for us? Why do these just small moments, just seemingly no big deal incidences bear such lasting weight on us? And so I want to dive into this tonight because frankly, I think we've had a major misconception around how much emotional pain can impact us. And I was actually doing some research on this about a year ago and found some really important scientific data to back up the fact that out of all of these studies and tests that have been done by multiple universities specifically around the country, they found that emotional rejection has a similar type of impact on our brain, on our nervous system, as does a physical trauma. And there's another book that I've read, it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And that also kind of points to this concept of how our body remembers and retains not even just the physical trauma that we've been through, but the mental or emotional pain that we've experienced. And so the first kind of that book, and then second, the research done by copious universities around the country, both of them add on layers to each other. So The Body Keeps the Score was the first one that I read, and that helped me understand how our body remembers the trauma. But then you add on an additional layer, and the book talks about this as well. But it was when I saw all these kind of independent studies done that proved that the body retains emotional rejection the same it does a physical trauma, and then pointing back to the book about how our body literally remembers physical trauma. Therefore, since the brain logs each one kind of at the same scale, then our body physically can throw us back in any moment to any moment in the past. So we talk about, we use this word, I guess, kind of in today's culture and in society, which means to be triggered, or that's what the word is. And what that means in so many ways is that something is inside of me that gets activated. And suddenly I physically, emotionally get kind of thrown to the past. And somehow the past becomes so big and it feels like it's happening all over again. And the present moment gets really, really clouded. And it's like I cannot see very clearly about what's going on right now. And there's real as you kind of dive into the physiological responses about our body having a reaction to something here in the present moment, it's really, really tied to what happened in the past. So as we're asking this question tonight, and as we're examining this concept of why do I keep getting hurt, it's so important that we're willing to do the work to actually investigate, well, what has happened to me in the past that has potentially set the stage for me to get more easily triggered, more easily activated? What has happened in the past that allows for almost like this sensitivity? But here's the thing that's so interesting, and I'm excited to talk about this tonight. And I actually had this, I guess you could say I learned this. It was taught to me on the show 3 months ago. I was in LA for the National Association of Women in Construction. And I was sitting in my hotel room on the show with you all, and we read a lesson. And it was a lesson most days of the year I've been reading through A Course in Miracles. And on that particular day, it was lesson like 160 or something, lesson 130, something like that. And we read about how basically anytime we're getting sensitive, anytime we're getting reactive, anytime we are getting kind of aggressive towards other people, that actually is effectively us attacking ourselves. So when I start building up walls, when I start basically shutting other people out, when I feel like I've got to attack other people, I am inevitably attacking myself. And I did not understand that concept until I read this lesson a few months ago. So tonight we're going to be reading a lesson having to do with this conversation about why do I keep getting hurt. But I wanted to first just kind of set the stage around the fact that, man, y'all, if we're not paying attention to how we are having the past show up in the present, it's so dangerous. People can't trigger, they can't trigger us unless there's something inside of us to be triggered. And if we have not taken the time to heal what's happened in the past, then here in this present moment, there's such an easier opportunity. It's like, man, we're an open target. We've got all these like exposed wounds, all these almost like we're open for attack because of our own sensitivities. The areas, the concept of vulnerability, there's one where it's actually I'm choosing to unveil myself and choosing to share what's going on for me that is maybe more so an open wound, and I'm doing so from a place of I'm going to let people in. But y'all, if we are not allowing for ourselves to be guided by wisdom, and we're showing up with vulnerabilities that have yet to be healed, and we are unwilling to heal them, and or we're showing up with those vulnerabilities to the wrong people, or maybe even in the wrong circumstance, if we're bringing our vulnerabilities to work, so that's the wrong place. If we're taking our vulnerabilities to somebody who has historically not honored them, that's the wrong person. And then if we're unwilling to heal, we keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. Well, maybe that's actually not even a vulnerability. Maybe that's actually an identity crisis, because it is so easy for us to take the past, take the pain, take the vulnerability, and attach it and assign it to who we are. And so I think every single one of us is and every day has the opportunity to take something and tie it or twist it to something in us that we're looking to affirm or maybe even validate. So if I have a belief about myself already, and then something completely outside of me takes place, well, that's probably going to reaffirm a narrative that I hold about myself. So now I just get to blame that person. But I already held that belief to begin with. Just jumping here in the chat. Brian, I'm so glad to see you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Wayne, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Randall, hello. Isaiah, good to see you all. Jahan, hello. Appearing Phenomena, good to see you. What's the line between self-defense and attack? And at what point are you just taking it from people and setting an uncompassionate example? I love that you asked that, Appearing Phenomena, because I have found that I want to repeat this for those of you who have been on the show in the past. You might have heard us talk about this. You can have the exact same output, but two completely different sources, like the internal state of the output. So you can have the exact same action take place, the exact same behavior, but the belief is driving it could be completely different. So I might have a decision of I need to have a boundary with somebody, but one internal state, I guess you could say, one internal source could be sourced in fear. I'm afraid of what they're going to do to me, therefore I am putting a boundary in. I am affording them and giving them power over me, because here's the thing, if we're acting out of attack and out of fear, we're actually saying, you have the power to hurt me, therefore I'm putting up a boundary, rather than saying, you know what, I have seen time and time again that this is not wisdom, that I actually am not living in accordance with my ideal when I'm around this person. And it has so much more to do about, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? What does wisdom dictate look like? So therefore I'm putting in a boundary, and, I wish you all the best. Now you're free and I'm free. And yet I still have a boundary. You don't have some magical power over me to hurt me, to cause me to become so upset and cause me to be violent and cause me to be resentful. No, instead, you're over there doing your thing. I've got a boundary up and I'm good. And this boundary is to protect us both. So what is the motivation of the action we're taking? And I think that's kind of where we can see for ourselves. Is this self-defense or is it attack? Is this wisdom or is this predicated in fear? Effectively feeling helpless. Y'all, I have felt that way with certain people in the past where it's like, okay, I definitely am afraid of what this person is going to do to me, and therefore I'm putting a boundary in place or I'm avoiding them, rather than recognizing, no, simply it's wisdom. It's wisdom to put this in place, and now I'm going to act accordingly. And appearing phenomena, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that, because I think it is so easy to go to one extreme or the other, where you just take it all and you don't ever have any boundaries because you don't want to. There could be multiple reasons why we just kind of let people walk all over us. But on the other side of things, I've actually seen boundaries be an excuse for, um, I've seen boundaries be an excuse for not engaging in the hard relationship, not engaging in the hard work, and not engaging in the tough conversations, because sometimes when people are pushing back on us, they're actually bringing something to our attention that we just didn't ever want to see in the first place. Wayne, why are people addicted to pain? Maybe because it's familiar. Oh man, I think that's such a good point. I really do. Wayne, I think you nailed it. In so many, of course, there can be more reasons for this, but I think we choose the certainty of misery. I heard that one time and that resonated so much. It is far more safe to choose the certainty of misery than to choose the uncertainty of potential comfort or potential healing. We don't know what's going to happen. Who will I be on the other side of healing? Will I even like what I see? Because for now, I've got an excuse. To the degree of pain that I feel is the degree to the excuse that now I can kind of get through life with. And not always. I think some pain, I know it personally, you've got to move through the pain, and it's there, and it's devastating sometimes. And who do I want to be at the same time? It was 6.5 years after my brother-in-law was killed where I was like, okay, I am not living. Like, I knew that I was not living. I knew that I actually fundamentally was not honoring him. I thought at first, to be honest with you, I was like, I'm not going to heal from this so that I can keep him close, so that I can honor him, so that I can keep his memory alive. And 6.5 years later, I realized I just wasn't even living. And now, almost 12 years later, no, it'll be 13 years later, almost 13 years later, his father really hasn't lived. And he's missed out on this wonderful opportunity of living life and honoring his son by the way that he lives, wholehearted and full. And yet he's unable to do that because he really has been so stuck in grief. And so in one sense, it's devastating because now we have 2 deaths or 3 deaths or as many deaths as there are for so many people who are no longer living out of the honor, in the name of honor. But really, I think it actually takes more courage to heal than it is requiring, just to stay in the grief. It's easier to stay in the certainty of pain rather than trying to grow and evolve and heal and almost like hope. Can I have hope? Hope is a brave, courageous thing. Can I get on the other side of pain? I'm just jumping here. Okay, hold on a second. All right. Let me see. David Green, hello, my friend. I love this conversation in the chat. John Romo, hello. Good to see you. The Swedish Ride says it's easier to ignore people. It is. It's true. It's easier to kind of be a recluse and to just do life alone. I really found that, it's easier. And is it actually am I going to know the truth? So it's like, okay, do I want to even know the truth? And sometimes the answer is no. In raw terms, forgiveness is letting go of the deep hatred you hold on to someone for what they have done to you. C.S. Lewis said he sat with his anger long enough to discover its true name, grief. Oh my gosh. What is the name of that book, Christopher? C.S. Lewis I think he lost his wife, right? And that book, Grief Observed. Oh my gosh. My sister read that. And I think she just felt so comforted by it. Doc, hello, good to see you. The Swedish Ride. Yeah, it's not uncommon, I guess, but it's not not good, of course, working too much, wrong priority. Yeah, I think you're right. I think, man, it's like there's so many reasons for it, you know? And, you know, I got to tell you, the Swedish ride, I'm glad you brought it up because I actually needed a season after my kind of moment of really like just being devastated with my husband leaving. I needed a season of isolation. I needed a season of kind of what I call the wilderness, where I actually really did just kind of live in quiet and kind of live in solitude, and I was not engaging with other people. A main reason for that, though, was because I had lived so much of my life where they had the power over me. They had the power over my identity. They had the power over what I thought. Tonight, sitting at the dinner table, we were having a conversation with two little boys, and they were talking to my parents and saying that what they called rules for life that their dad taught them. And one of the rules for life was about how we should always be questioning things. And this is a 9 and 11-year old, and they're talking about the need for us to constantly question the concepts and the narratives that have been told to us. And so it was so challenging for me in the best way, listening to these little boys and realizing, man, I have lived most of my life doing what I'm told, and I'm living so much of my life where I'm living in response, living reactive to how are people their what's their facial reaction, what do they care about, what are they uncomfortable by, and then how can I tamper and tailor myself to adjust to make sure that they feel good. And so I lived much of my life in response and in reaction rather than living proactive, according to knowing who I am, knowing my identity. You know, I like this concept of threes: knowing who I am, whose I am, and why I am. Those three things, who, whose, and why, man, that brings so much grounding into the way that we show up in life. And when I say grounding, I mean like the cover of my book is a tree and has deep roots. So you and I being able to have deeply rooted beliefs that inform the external behaviors, you know, the internal beliefs are not seen, but the behaviors are. So, this whole concept of you shall know a tree by its fruit. Well, okay, well, what happens when the wind blows? What happens when you've got people not liking you, when you've got people disagreeing with you? How are you withstanding when the wind blows and when it starts getting stormy outside, or when devastation does strike and you lose somebody? And you know, you look at that kind of larger scale where it's like death or real significant loss. But what about just those petty small things that we put that word, that four-letter word in front of just? It was just a broken promise. It was just a social rejection. It was just getting left out of the invitation. It was just all these little just moments compound, and they have an effect, as does compounding interest. These moments over moments from our childhood all the way into adulthood, they have a compounding effect that leave us significantly impacted if we don't honor and recognize the weight that emotional rejection has on our cognitive, physical, like literally our neural system, the way that we are wired and the way that we engage with the world. Just like a physical trauma, our bodies, our brains, and this is studies proven cross universities around the US as well as by around the world and other parts, speaking specifically to this kind of trauma. And so the more that we start recognizing this, the more we actually start affording compassion, so that we're not simply living with someone else being our emotional thermometer, but we're recognizing and able to see, oh man, like I actually really didn't like that. And it might be a really small thing, and it might feel silly. You know, I got hurt by, I remember being 17 years old, and someone 12 years old really hurt my feelings. And I felt so silly because why would I be so upset by a 12-year-old? And I never allowed myself to really heal from that. And then that 12-year-old kid had power over me for many, many years because I never actually dealt with the physiological response that comes when somebody is emotionally rejecting you. Our bodies react. And so how much of our lives are we living reactive versus proactive? And that comes on the Knowing Show. We talk about intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and physical intelligence. Each one of those intelligences respond to what happens to us. So if we're not keenly aware of how each intelligence is impacted when something happens, whether it's a physical trauma, an emotional trauma, regardless of the category that it directly impacts, it has the kind of indirect ramifications across every level of analysis. So until we start honoring each intelligence and offering weight to each one, man, we're going to end up being kind of lopsided. Just jumping here in the chat, Christopher Adams says, I read Grief Observed shortly after my dad died 5 years ago. I was devastated because I was very close to him. Christopher Adams, I am already dreading the day I lose my dad. I'm so sorry, my friend. I'm so sad for you. I have yet to read it. I know that it really helped my sister when she lost her husband, but I haven't read it yet. So honestly, it makes me grateful for books like that, that we can come around each other and really feel that love, and encouragement. Just looking back. Charlie, Food and Art, hello. Glad to see you. Swedish Rye, we need to break free from that mindset. So good. Jonathan Keeling, hello. Good to see you. Okay, Chris, hello. Good to see you. Comic Flick Fusion, hello. I'm glad you're here. Chris Dix, hello. Good to see you. Think about this imagery. A stream of water wouldn't sound so beautiful without rocks nestled in it. There are obstacles in life, but by no means will they ever detract from who you are. That's so, so good. A strong flower that is still growing and getting more beautiful and healthy to the world. Y'all, isn't that I do like the concept around kind of nature, the correlation around being that strong tree. And, Christopher, you brought up the concept of water. Where is your tree planted? So there's this concept of having strong roots and being really deeply grounded in the beliefs that you hold. But what is the soil in which your beliefs are held? Where is it actually planted, your tree? And so there's this concept of like the nutrients that we soak up to inform our root system. That's really, really, really important to consider. Where have I derived these deep roots? Where have I derived these beliefs about myself, about the world around me, about God, about other people? Where did those come from? So as we're examining the fruit of our lives and our behaviors, it's so critical that we do the work to trace down to the roots of where those beliefs started from, because the beliefs always impact the behavior. Just jumping here, I actually want to read today's lesson, lesson 198. So we started reading A Course in Miracles at the beginning of this year. I started doing it for my sake, but it's been so encouraging. And so I'm grateful to be able to sit here and read it with you tonight, as we do most days. And I'm wrapping up. I've actually been on visiting my family on the East Coast, and I've been going live at weird times. Normally I'll go live in the morning at the same time and on the weekends at the same time, but it's been a little crazy. So thank you for bearing with me and joining me so late in the evening. I'm going to read lesson 198. Only my condemnation injures me. Injury is impossible, and yet illusion makes impossible. If you can condemn, you can be injured. For you have believed that you can injure, and the right you have established for yourself can be now used against you till you lay it down as valueless, unwanted, and unreal. Then does illusion cease to have effects, and those it seemed to have will be undone. Then you are free, for freedom is your gift, and you can now receive the gift you gave. Condemn, and you are made a prisoner. Forgive, and you are freed. Such is the law that rules perception. It is not a law that knowledge understands, for freedom is a part of knowledge. To condemn is thus impossible in truth. Word. What seems to be its influence and its effects have not occurred at all. Yet must we deal with them a while as if they had. Illusion makes illusion except one. Forgiveness is illusion that is the answer to the rest. Forgiveness sweeps all other dreams away, and though it is itself a dream, it breeds no others. All illusions, save this one, must multiply 1,000-fold, because this is where illusions end. Forgiveness is the dream of dreams, because it is a dream of waking. It is not itself the truth, yet does it point to where the truth must be and gives direction with the certainty of God Himself. It is a dream in which the Son of God awakens to His self and to His Father, knowing they are one. Forgiveness is the only road that leads out of disaster, past all suffering, and finally away from death. How could there be another way when this one is the plan of God Himself? And why would you oppose it, quarrel with it, seek to find 1,000 ways in which it must be wrong, 1,000 other possibilities? Is it not wiser to be glad you hold the answer to your problems in your hand? Is it not more intelligent to thank the one who gives salvation and accept his gift with gratitude? And is it not a kindness to yourself to hear his voice and learn the simple lessons he would teach, instead of trying to dismiss his words and substitute your own in place? His words will work. His words will save. His words contain all hope, all blessing, and all joy that ever can be found upon this earth. His words are born in God and come to you with heaven's love upon them. Those who hear his words have heard the song of heaven. For these are the words in which all merge as one at last. And as this one will fade away, the word of God will come to take its place, for it will be remembered then and loved. This world has many seeming separate haunts where mercy has no meaning and attack appears as justified. Yet all are one, a place where death is offered to God's Son and to his Father. You may think they have accepted, but if you will look again upon the place where you beheld their blood, you will perceive a miracle instead. How foolish to believe that they could die. How foolish to believe you can attack. How mad to think that you could be condemned and that the Holy Son of God can die. The stillness of yourself remains unmoved, untouched by thoughts like these, and unaware of any condemnation which could need forgiveness. Dreams of any kind are strange and alien to the truth. And what but truth could have a thought which builds a bridge to it that brings illusions to the other side? Today we practice letting freedom come to make its home with you. The truth bestows these words upon your mind that you may find the light to truth and let the darkness end. Only my condemnation injures me. Only my forgiveness sets me free. Do not forget today that there can be no form of suffering that fails to hide an unforgiving thought. Nor can there be a form of pain forgiveness cannot heal. Except the one illusion which proclaims there is no condemnation in God's Son, and heaven is remembered instantly. The world forgotten and all its weird beliefs forgotten with it, as the face of Christ appears unveiled at last in this one dream. This is the gift the Holy Spirit holds for you from God your Father. Let today be celebrated both on earth and in your holy home as well. Be kind to both as you forgive the trespasses you thought them guilty of, and see your innocence shining upon you from the face of Christ. Now is there silence all around the world. Now is there stillness, where before there was a frantic rush of thoughts that made no sense. Now is there tranquil light across the face of the earth, made quiet in a dreamless sleep. And now the word of God alone remains with it. Only that can be perceived an instant longer. Then are symbols gone, and everything you ever thought you made completely vanished from the mind that God forever knows to be his only Son. There is no condemnation in him. He is perfect in his holiness. He needs no thoughts of mercy. Who could give him gifts when everything is his? And who could dream of offering forgiveness to the Son of sinlessness itself? So like to him, whose Son he is, that to behold the Son is to perceive no more and only know the Father. In this vision of the sun, so brief that not an instant stands between this single sight and timelessness itself, you see the vision of yourself, and then you disappear forever into God. Today we come still nearer to the end of everything that yet would stand between this vision and our sight. And we are glad that we have come this far and recognize that he who brought us here will not forsake us now. For he would give to us the gift that God has given us through him today. Now is the time for your deliverance. The time has come. The time has come today. Y'all, this question of why do I get hurt so easily? Why am I sensitive? Why do I feel pain so, man, just like so deeply? So often, the ability for us to receive pain from somebody else has so much to do with the fact that we're not remembering our own identity. We're not remembering who we are, whose we are, or why we are. I was talking to my darling today, and he made a comment. He was like, man, or we were just talking about judgment. And I just told him, if we are spending the majority of our life in our own arena, falling down, picking ourselves back up, falling down again, knowing the taste of triumph, knowing the taste of defeat. And man, if we're doing life well and hard, we know our identity, we know our mission, and we're living accordingly, we don't have time to judge. We also don't have time to let other people's words have that much impact on us. Y'all, I got to tell you, sometimes here in the chat, and I'm so grateful for my friend Brian, who has just been so generous to help moderate the chat. And I'm so grateful for that. We need it. We need the moderation because it is so easy here in the chat for us to kind of go in the direction of just judging each other and being unkind and being harsh rather than recognizing, man, the power of our words bring life or bring death. And so the ability for us to come together and use our words with wisdom and with intentionality allows for us here on the show to have that kind of environment where it's encouraging. And also, it's taking those same principles into the other areas of our lives where we need to be our own moderator. What are we moderating our thoughts? Are we moderating our words? Are we actually sitting in the seat of, let me analyze and consider what thoughts are passing by? This concept of moderation actually could very well be the embodiment of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, the definition is the ability to be aware, to understand, to control, and to convey one's own emotions. And it's the ability to handle interpersonal relationships with empathy and with wisdom. So effectively, this conversation around moderation or like moderating our mind, moderating our thoughts, and frankly, this might even be more so it. Moderating who have we given power in the driver's seat of our life to say, to do, to act in a way that ultimately has power over us, where what they do, say, or think allows for us to change our own opinion, change our own belief system, change our own actions. It's been really interesting over the last couple of weeks. I've been around a lot of kids, and it's been really, really precious. I started my first business when I was 12, and I was just gathering all the kids I was babysitting, and I started doing summer camps for them. And I did it for many, many years, and I still kind of love to engage with kids now today. And, I'm watching them, and I'm watching these kids who are learning how to think for themselves in this really beautiful way. They actually know who they are to an extent where they're so confident and they know their identity. They know that they're worthy. They know that they're loved. And, I just observe so much in the millennial generation and up. It's like, man, we could all use more of that. We could all use more just deep awareness over the value that we bring in the world. Because I think that if we really, really believed that, we would be way less impressionable by what other people do, say, think, how they act. It wouldn't bother us so much. It wouldn't hold so much weight. It wouldn't have the ability to make us to feel depressed or somebody's breaking up with us, somebody moves on. I remember my former husband, when he left, he said, it's not personal. And I was like, how is it not personal? And of course, you can kind of go back and forth on that. But at the end of the day, that was my greatest challenge of, am I going to believe what somebody else has to say about my identity? Am I going to define my worth and kind of my belonging in the world by way of someone else's opinion? And we need to make those decisions, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the degree to which we can be impacted by them, by society around us, it touches, y'all, it touches every single level. Sometimes we're not even aware. We're subconscious, in terms of like, our subconscious is taking in all this information constantly. With every single scroll on this device, we're taking inputs. And so if we have the propensity to let other people have power over us, and it usually looks like codependence, and usually it shows up in our deepest, closest relationships, where they are our emotional weather thermostat. Or maybe it's just, I believe what you believe about the world. And it could just be at a subconscious level. But if we're doing that with those closest to us, then we probably are doing it at a subconscious level to most other things. Just starting to form opinions based off of the news we see. And is that even the real news, or is it just a curated algorithm? So this aspect, this question, why do I get hurt so easily? It extends broad, wide, deep, and it just touches every corner of our lives, from our religious beliefs to our political beliefs to our core beliefs about our own identity. Do we have the ability to know the truth? And I'm talking about capital T truth, not a subjective opinion, or a subjective point of view. Do we have the ability to stand on something that is deeper than feelings, that is deeper than the changing flux of the algorithm, that's deeper than even our own past experiences? And so to be able to answer this question and say, well, why do I keep getting hurt so easily? Maybe it actually lends to something of, well, what is the foundation of my home that I have built? What is the soil in which my tree has been rooted? And sometimes it really does need to be the examination, not just of the contents of the soil in which my tree has been growing. You shall know a tree by its fruit. So what's our behavior? Well, we can figure out what our belief system is by tracing the roots all the way down. It's beyond sometimes just the soil, but it's also like, well, step back. Where is your tree actually planted? Like, are you in good community? Because sometimes the soil, that's been there for 30 years. But we can actually move the tree, and it's painful to uproot it. It's painful to plant it somewhere else, but sometimes we need to do that. We were talking at the very beginning of the show, the question was asked around, well, what's the difference between attacking somebody that's rooted in fear versus self-defense rooted in wisdom? And, I think this is a great example of sometimes the action that is necessary as a result of wisdom, as a result of love. The behavior might actually look very consistent. I might move and replant my tree because I'm terrified, or I might replant my tree because I'm like, this is no longer who I want to be. And I am choosing the freedom that is mine in the power of choice to move my tree and plant somewhere else, because I want to be different. I want different fruit in my life. So this question of, well, why do I keep getting hurt? It's really a reverse engineering to use this as an opportunity to consider these core intelligences in our lives. Where am I most sensitive? Which is effectively proving to me that there's a real vulnerability there. I'm exposed. I do not feel strong here. Because if I feel strong, I actually can't really be hurt easily. If I'm fearful, if I'm afraid, if I'm exposed, well, now there's a real vulnerability. I actually have a propensity to be hurt in that way. So this question of, well, why do I keep getting hurt? Why am I exposed there? And what is exposed that is effectively allowing for an open line of attack from someone, whether it's, again, a thought about who I am, my identity, whose I am, or why I am, my mission. And so for us to really be able to move and like completely deviate away from this whole question of, well, why am I getting hurt so easy? It's, okay, well, what do I need to strengthen in me to fortify my mind, fortify my spirit, fortify my soul, fortify my physical body? If we hate what we see when we look in the mirror, that's a great sign of areas that we can strengthen and tend to cultivate and have different fruit as a result. And I'm not just talking about a physical mirror. I'm talking about the emotional, spiritual, yes, physical reaction that we get when we see ourselves for who we truly are. And y'all, if we can look ourselves straight in the eye with pride over who we are today, I think that's probably one of the best things that we can ever encounter in the world, is feeling pride over the person that we have cultivated. Just jumping here in the chat. Zeus says forgiveness is the key. That's so, so, so good. Oh, Wayne, I'm so grateful for you, my friend. Thank you. Afar Yar, hello, good to see you. Swedish Bride, I would love that. Please come and join us. Jason, thank you so much for joining. Jason Guthrie. Christopher Adams, I love what you're writing here about. I find what drastically changed my lifestyle was a habit of introspection. Such behavior begins with a shift of reactions grounded by a different basis of thought. So good. This is interesting. So there's kind of like this through line, just going back to the analogy of the tree. So you're looking at the external. We all see the leaves on the tree or the fruit of the tree, like literally the fruit. You shall know a tree by its fruit. So we see the external behaviors of a person by the fruit in their life. How do they show up? What's their character? What is a quality of their character? What is the quality of their manners? What is the quality of their kindness, their intelligence? So you know a tree by its fruit. And then we talked about the root system. So the behavior is that which is that external. The internal is the belief system. But the thought is the connective tissue. It's like that which goes up inside the tree all the way through the trunk line down to the fruit and the manifestation of it from the roots itself. So between belief and behavior is the thought. That is the connective tissue. And so, Christopher Adams, what you just said, such behavior begins with a shift of reactions grounded by a different basis of thought. I love that. Here's what's so interesting, and I love this. We can change the fruit in our lives to effectively reverse engineer and impact the belief that we hold. Or we can go and attack the belief, and then thus the thought changes and then the fruit changes. But it's possible. If I want to change a belief I have around maybe my physical health, well, I can actually start by changing the fruit of the habit required for the belief to then follow. Or I can go and try to change the belief and then have the fruit follow. So this is the thing that's cool about kind of the reverse engineering aspect, is that you can see real change in your life by going either direction. But our thoughts is the through line, regardless if you're starting with the behavior or you're starting with the belief. John Bailey, I'm so glad to see you. Evan, thanks for joining. Steve, hello. Good to see you. Luke, hello. Warren, when the world seems cold and your friends seem few, there is someone who cares for you. When your tears are in your eyes, your heart bleeds inside, there is someone who cares for you. So beautifully said. Thank you, Jason. I'm so grateful for your note. Thank you. Lewis, hello. Thanks for joining. Brian says replant a different seed. So good. Y'all, thank you so much for joining tonight. I really, really loved our conversation. Honestly, sometimes the best conversations that we can have are when, there's just a few of us hanging out. And so I'm really grateful you were here. And I think that this was the perfect setting and the perfect group. So thank you all so much for joining. As Wayne says, just to kind of end it, he says, it's hard. It's a lot of work, but it is possible if you make the effort. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you tomorrow on The Knowing Show.